Well, it turns out that the initial rendering leak that we received on the Chicago White Sox new stadium when everything initially broke about a month ago, it was legit, it was real, and now we do have more HD photos of what the White Sox stadium could look like. And oh my goodness, it is very, very small. And I just think this is what we need to expect when it comes to potential MLB stadiums. They're going to be smaller and smaller. Looks like a capacity around 35,000. But either way, I'm going to go through. You can see here's what a new White Sox ballpark in the South Loop could look like. New details have emerged of what the plan for a new South Loop stadium, as well as what the team's current Bridgeport home, Guaranteed Rate Field, would look like if converted to a soccer stadium. Yeah, so that's another little thing that they showed some renderings of a development for a soccer stadium where Guaranteed Rate Field would be. So Guaranteed Rate Field will be demolished, obviously. I mean, there's no need for it if the White Sox do move on from it. And that's possibly the development right there. But in terms of the stadium photos, we're going to go one by one and take a look, beginning with them showcasing the close proximity to the water there. You also do have that looks like glass little tint on the facade. It's a decent stadium facade. There's nothing wrong with it. I would like to see more of an incorporation into the White Sox colors of white and black because I think those colors are great. But either way, that is just the exterior, a decent glass, paneling right there. Moving on to the interior, this is kind of the money shot. So the first thing I guess I just notice is the buildings overlooking, and you'll see an aerial photo just how big this development is. It's like 17 total buildings. It's the whole idea of a ballpark district, the total shebang, and you can see looks like several of those buildings do offer decent views. It's not like they're necessarily ridiculously close. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen the Portland design where they've got apartments like overlooking the stadium. It's not like that, but they are relatively close. I will say something that sticks out to me that I think needs to change and needs to be redesigned is the entire center field area. So you can see they've got the pinwheels. Of course, you're going to want to, utilize the pinwheels. They're basically the only unique thing at Guaranteed Rate Field right now. So obviously you're going to want to bring it over. It's like the Royals bringing over the waterfalls from Kauffman Stadium to their new stadium. That's something that you're going to want to utilize, but they're just kind of naked out in center field and it looks really bad. Those things should be on top of the left field scoreboard and the center field area should be redesigned. I do like the little green patch batter's eye, but the only thing that I can think of is they're trying to keep center field open to make it connectable to the district, the ballpark district, but there are other ways to do that than it looking that barren, and to me it gives me a minor league ballpark vibe when I look at it. I think it needs to be built up in center field. That's just my personal opinion on that. You take a look at left field, looks like they do have some bullpens. I'm guessing those are some bullpens, and then you also have some seats, and then you have a little upper level. You want to know what this reminds me of? So if you just focus on the left field area, Citizens Bank Park, at least a little bit. Now, I will say, I think the second, set of seating is a little bit lower than, where it is in Citizens Bank Park, but that's kind of the same alignment where you've got a lower bowl, a smaller upper bowl, and then the massive scoreboard. Citizens Bank Park did just put in a new scoreboard, but that's just kind of what I get from that. And then looking at right field, kind of unique. They've got two different sections of seats, actually three different, excuse me. You've got that lower section, looks like there's some standing room areas up beyond the bullpen, and then you have the middle section, and then the smaller section gets lower. I would say I don't love the design of that light tower where there's just all those barren naked beams. I think that's kind of a skeleton design and that would have to be redone personally. It just looks kind of weird to me, but in general, that's what they're going with. They're going to go with limited capacity, but that is just the general vibe from the interior of the stadium. Looking at the exterior, but that is just the general vibe from the interior. Certainly, this is an amazing location. Everybody loves it. They hit it out of the ballpark if this is actually where the ballpark is going to be located, right along the river, built up area. And there you can see kind of the incorporation of that open center field area Yeah, again, I understand the idea of it. It kind of reminds me of the center field area for the Orlando Dreamers. It's kind of nerdy. I mean, the Orlando Dreamers aren't even a thing, but they did release renderings, and they've got something similar to where they've got this patch out beyond center field. It's like a little meeting area right before, I'm guessing, you enter the ballpark. And I just think that's a detriment to the overall ballpark because I'm just not a fan of the that amount of openness. But either way, it seems like that's the type of thing they're trying to do. And then this is a little bit confusing. So you can see this aerial shot, and it looks like they're going with black seats, which I love. I know people say, well, you can't do that because of the sun and the black seats are going to be hot. I don't know. I like that a lot, going with black seats, even if it does get hot sometimes in the summer during day games. The one thing that I'll say, when you look at this design, I believe the design is different from the one that we just saw. You know, when we were like looking into the stadium, this design looks pretty different, especially in right field. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on there. But you can see all those white buildings. Those are all new developments. Like, all of those buildings would be potentially apartments, potentially office space, things like that. Maybe a hotel. And that's it. How about no parking? You know, it is what it is, man. I mean, in terms of no parking, for stadiums, the aesthetic is amazing when you have no parking and you incorporate a stadium like that. Certainly, you could have parking away, and I think this might be a more modern thing. And Chicago can get away with doing this because of the amount of public transportation that you have. And in general, I mean, you really don't want to be driving your car in Chicago. Now, certainly, I'm not anti-car at all. I think it's important to have your own car. That's an important right. But in general, like, you go into Chicago, you'd much rather just take an Uber. It's just easier. There's nowhere to park. Maybe the new thing when it comes to stadiums is having parking lots and parking garages, but have them like 4 or 5 blocks away. You want the stadium to be organically incorporated with the surrounding area to where there's not a sea and a desert of parking. And I think this is really going to kickstart even more renovations to stadiums, because a lot of these stadiums are surrounded by parking. I mean, look at Kauffman Stadium in Arrowhead and just how that's going to be developed in the next decade. Once Kauffman Stadium is gone, you can just list stadium after stadium on how they're going to be changing them. I will say, when it comes to the incorporation of the White Sox colors, black and white, if you look at Allegiant Stadium, otherwise known as the Death Star, why not incorporate something like that on the exterior to where the facade is black and then you have white light up rings going around the outside of it? That would be an amazing design that I think they should consider. But in general, you know, it's a good looking stadium. It kind of reminds me of a neutered down version of Truist Park, if I'm being honest. And that's nothing against this design. I mean, the location of this is you could say is even better because it's right on the water. It's unique. That's fine. But it seems like maybe a capacity about 36K, I think is what they were saying. And you can see the total development around $9 billion. That's obviously not just the stadium. That's the entire area. That is what it could cost. And then there you can see another rendering of the potential soccer development that they're going to be doing if Guaranteed Rate Field is no more. That site will be redeveloped, it will be demolished, and they will put, looks like, some type of smaller soccer stadium, maybe a capacity of around 15 to 18,000 in terms of that. But the general sentiment right now, things are moving forward with the Chicago White Sox project. They do release the public renderings. Obviously, this rendering release not really that big because they were already leaked, but these are more renderings. It gives you kind of perspective on the ballpark. I'm sure it'll change slightly, although one of the things that we've seen as we've gotten more recently, at least, renderings tend to, for the most part, stay the same. Now, the initial ones might change a little bit, but in general, you know, we would expect this to be relatively what the stadium looks like. It doesn't surprise me at all. It's a small upper deck. It's got, you know, the whole district incorporated through center field. It is a modern design, and that is what the White Sox are planning on doing. So either way, a lot of people hyped up for this. I say very, very popular in terms of MLB fans looking at this location, thinking it's a great idea, thinking the White Sox hit it out of the park with this potential stadium. I was kind of wondering, would it be a retractable roof? Turns out, nope, not a retractable roof. It is open, but that's going to do it for this video, guys. Make sure you're following me on X. Link to that's always in the description.